let's get started. We should be able to keep this to an hour. I did prepare some slides. We're very glad to have Councilmember, for those of you who don't know him, Councilmember Eric Olson with us and his Chief of Staff, Julio Murillo. So that's really cool. As I said, we have a bunch of slides. I'm going to advance them. You should be seeing them on your screen. Thank you, Cheryl Court from CSG, for this image, which I borrowed from something that you all had published. It's what we like. We like transit, we like bicycling, we like micro-mobility in the form of scooters and all of that. So let's go on with these slides. So our agenda is welcome. What we're doing right now, I'll let Cheryl talk in a second. And then talk about the overall political landscape, the government landscape, I should say, for Prince George's County, give an overview of the budget and the process. Ask Councilmember Olson to speak about the council handling of the budget and what constitutes good advocacy, what kind of modifications that you think that the TIEE committee and your other council colleagues will pursue. Advocacy next steps, and then just general discussion. And we should be able to keep this to an hour pretty easily. Let me invite, so I'm with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. Let me invite Cheryl Court to say hello.
Thanks, Seth. I'm Cheryl Court with the Coalition for Smarter Growth, and I appreciate we love partnering with Washington Association of Bicycle, WABA. It's hard to remember the whole thing. Just WABA, and then and Rise Prince George's is the group that we work with locally in Prince George's.
Well, I saw that Councilmember that your colleagues thought we were the Washington Bay Bicyclist Association.
We got that straightened out.
Yes, I know you did, and we appreciate that you all included us. I assume that was Councilmember Fisher who initiated that, but in any case. Yeah, so that's it for a welcome. We'll keep this tight. Let's see. So the entities that are in play here, we'll start with 3. The Prince George's County Council, there are 11 members. 9 of them represent districts, and there are 2 at-large council members who represent the whole of the county. Arguably, all the council members represent or have the interests of the whole of the county in mind. We have the county administration, the county executive, Angela Also Brooks, who oversees the Department of Works and Public and Transportation, which is the agency that we are going to be most focused on right now. And as the quote there explains, they're responsible for almost 2,000 miles of county maintained roads and so on and so forth. And another player is the Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission, in particular Parks and Recreation, handling the trails and I suppose roadways also within Prince George's County parks. They're funded by the county council and the county executive, but they do have an independent operation. And then additional players here are Prince George's County municipalities, of which there are 27. The largest, I believe, is Bowie. And there are some that are very small. Typically, they will own their own roads and have public works departments. Some of them have very robust programs for building pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, and some less so. So we have an atmosphere where we need cooperation with the county, the municipalities, and with the Maryland State Highway Administration in particular, which owns the state roads in Prince George's. Those are the most dangerous roads in the county for pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers alike. The State Highway Administration has something called context-driven that aims to have improvements to the physical infrastructure, the roadway infrastructure, the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure appropriate to the context, the situation at a given location, whether it's an urban area or rural or something in between. This is something that we, including Cheryl, who's with us, and I have been actively working on to help, let's call it encourage the State Highway Administration to modernize the context-driven system, and in particular to have more projects in Prince George's County, but that's a different budget story. We do have a huge challenge in Prince George's County using a state data system. Prince George's County had 129 roadway fatalities in 2023. That is actually an increase over the last 5 years. It's higher than the 5-year average. That includes 3 bicyclists and 17 motorcyclists and 39 pedestrians. That is a terrible number. When I last looked about a week ago, it was 22 already for 2024, of whom 50% were pedestrians who were killed on Prince George's County roadways. So we have a big challenge here. We have a number of solutions. The county has a Vision Zero program. The goal of Vision Zero is 0 deaths and serious injuries on the roadways, and the county is not meeting that. There are a number of treatments as indicated here. Now, I did put in the chat, and I will resend later, a link to the live version of these slides, which has live links that you can click on to get to the systems that are referenced here. We also have, oh, I forgot the title on the image to the right. We have work going on in the Department of Public Works and Transportation to develop Prince George's County bikeways. They actually call what you see on the right a bikeways network plan. It is not a network. It is a set of not completely unconnected segments. They do connect to arterials and trails and so on. And there are many more projects than the top 15 that are listed here. I would encourage you to go to the site. I will say, because it is completely germane to this session, that I asked the Department of Public Works and Transportation about a month ago to participate in this session, and it got rescheduled. And I found out yesterday morning they would not be participating, which is, I find, highly disappointing. I'm not personally a Prince George's County resident. I live nearby, but I would hope for better public relations and customer service from DPW&T. They do take public input when it comes to plans like the one that you see illustrated on the right, on the Vision Zero plan, which a new lead person, Samarita Dabade, at Department of Public Works and Transportation, is in the process of rewriting. But we need to do our best to press DPW&T to be responsive to the public. I will also mention the Capital Trails Coalition, which is managed by my WABA colleague, Callie Crumpos. That includes parks trails and on-road trails. We are working to expand the trails network. That often requires quite a lot of money. For instance, we have the Central Avenue Connector Trail on the lower right here. This is part funded by a $25 million RAISE grant. That is a federal grant program that aims to create infrastructure that is going to be progressive and active. In Prince George's County, there's a bike share that is run by, a bike share system is run by DPW&T as well. Actually, Cheryl, you might want to say something about this. This is what I picked up earlier.
No, I'm actually not really much of an expert on how you develop distribution for bike share stations.
Well, the thing to note here is that the stations are in yellow in the image on the right, and you will see precisely 4 stations south of Route 50. 2 of them are in the Oxon Hill area. One is a little bit farther northeast of there. And then one of them is in the southern limit of Bowie, just south of Route 50. But the concentration of the rest of them is in the northwest portion of the county, and this is inequitable. It was raised during today's, we'll talk about this, Transportation, Infrastructure, Energy, and Environment Committee meeting by Councilmember Burrows, who does represent an area around Oxon Hill and Fort Washington, that there is an inequitable distribution. We need to build physical infrastructure on the streets, bike lanes, safe pedestrian crossings, but we also need to provide infrastructure such as bike share in an equitable fashion. So the county executive did release her proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. That's for the year that starts July 1st, 2025. What was it, maybe 6 months ago, 6 weeks ago. I have a link at the bottom here, which will take you to a page that includes other budget materials, including a YouTube recording of her launch announcement. The 3 links on this page, if you do open up the active version, you can click on to get to, for instance, the budget in brief, the full operating budget, and then the capital improvement budget. That is a 6-year prospect, because capital projects do take multiple years to plan and construct. So we're segueing now to inviting Councilmember Eric Olson to speak. He is the chair of the Transportation Infrastructure, Energy and Environment Committee, which oversees, among other areas, the Department of Public Works and Transportation. Not coincidentally, there was just a TIE session earlier today, which looked at the environment and the transportation budgets. And you can go to the link that I put in here for active links to what's shown on this page, if you can discern it, to the presentation that was given by, well, to an incomplete version of the presentation that was given by DPW&T today, and to material that the council put together reporting on their budget. So I will have some slides from the presentation that I just pulled out, germane to bicycling and pedestrian and road safety. I pulled just an image from the memo that was created by a council analyst for the committee, and 2 quotes from there. And one of them is an active question of mine. In any case, the DPW&T budget has a very significant 23.6% decrease for the current fiscal year. And that does include grant funding decrease that is also very significant because of, as you can see here, removal of low, no emission grants. That would be for buses. And then a Maryland Bikeways grant. I actually am unclear what that Maryland Bikeways grant would have been for. So I'm about to transition to the, well, in a moment, to the council member. But if you can answer what that decrease in the grant was for, I would appreciate it. Often you have to do a whole lot of digging to find things. And for instance, the staffing is not broken out in a granular enough fashion according to programs. So it's often very hard to get information that that you would like to find. So one final slide before I turn it over to the council member. So I pulled 4 images from the DPW&T presentation deck from today, from their presentation to the committee. And you can read them left to right across the top and then the bottom. An enhanced focus on safety. We're real glad about that. The image to the upper right mentions Safe Streets and Roads for All. This is based on a grant that a federal grant that the county received to do improvements. But one of the things I'm going to be talking about a little bit later is the need for them to get even more grant applications in the pipeline so that there'll be funding in future years for different programs. The bottom bullet on the upper right slide, Vision Zero Prince George's, the safe system approach, that is explained in the lower left that the county is transitioning to something called the safe system. It is essentially a federal standard for increasing roadway safety all around. You can read more about it if you wish. I don't need to go into that, but we are heartened by the emphasis on Vision Zero and safe systems. As I mentioned earlier, a new Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation Vision Zero program manager Samarita Dabade is working in the coming months to essentially revitalize the county's Vision Zero program. So we're all for that. And then, of course, a major part of when you're talking about transportation is infrastructure, capital improvements. And we do see on the right project planning, and often infrastructure will be built by developers in association with new projects, new commercial and residential development. And we do see some acknowledgement of sidewalk, pedestrian access, and bike share here. I would say that in my interactions with DPW&T, this is perhaps a less of a focus this year than it has been in previous years, the creation of bicycling and pedestrian infrastructure. That is purely my impression, but so it goes. So this was really quick. I guess I did this in about 15 minutes or less. Overview of the landscape in Prince George's, the government players, and the budget has been presented. And so I would like to turn it over now to Councilmember Eric Olson to speak from his perspective about the budget, anything that you would like to add or correct for that matter to what I had to say. by way of introduction, what kind of alterations you would like to see in the budget, what the budget process is going to be, and the opportunity for advocacy from people who are attending this session right now, and anything else that you think is germane. And we do very much appreciate you joining us.
It's always a pleasure, Seth, joining you and Cheryl and your organizations. And it's always, you're all doing great work and really making a difference in our work to transform, Prince George's County. I mean, last year's, major initiative to pass the urban streets design, overhaul. And frankly, it was a major overhaul of how we look at our urban streets, and really appreciate all the work from the bike ped and smart growth and environmental communities, on that. And we can talk more about that too, but I know that we're getting the standards, which I got a preview of them. They actually look pretty good. I know you've been involved in some of the in some of those work groups and everything leading to that. So now we need to take it to the next step and fund. I mean, some of it comes from development that comes, and then developers have to use those standards when they come in, but also as we retrofit roads and our urban streets. But we want to definitely work to do the retrofitting of some of those in the coming years. So that's certainly one area. But thank you for hosting this event. Thanks for your advocacy. Sort of the broadest overview is the council received the proposed budget from the county executive in mid-March. For the last couple of weeks, we've been going through. Sorry, my screen changed on me.
Yeah, I stopped the share.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, I had to readjust it. The FY25 budget, proposed budget, is about $4.5 billion. Of course, 60-something% goes to the schools, so that comes right off the table, and then another almost 20% goes to public safety, and so that's kind of off the table. So we're left with the remainder, for all the other things, environment, code enforcement, DPWT, all those other things. We are facing a $171 million budget shortfall this year. That is baked into the current budget, but that means that there's not a lot of wiggle room. This year has been other years where there's been surplus. That's not the case this year, but still, we want to look at the priorities, make sure that we're funding our priorities, make sure that we're. I mean, certainly, I want to make sure that we're doing more for pedestrian and bike safety measures and retrofitting and doing all those things that I know you and your supporters want to see. The process. So we have committees, 5 committees that look at the different areas. The TIEE committee, the Transportation, Infrastructure, Energy, Environment Committee that I chair, that looks at DPWT, Department of Public Works and Transportation budget. And as you said, Seth, we questioned the department today on a number of on their budget. Got some answers, are waiting for more answers. I have more questions, frankly, that we wanted to ask. We were running up against the next committee. There's so much robust discussion, and including one of those questions was, where did all that bikeways money, what was that spent on? And I knew you were going to ask that tonight, and I don't have the answer to that, but I know that that grant funding is funding that was spent. It didn't just go away. I mean, it's the vehicles, the buses, and all that. Those were major grants that came in and then were spent. So it's not like the cut in the DPWT budget was basically large amount of grant money that came in last year, and then that was spent. So because I was really concerned when I saw a 25% decrease in the DPWT budget, but really it means money from last year. We get more money because of grants coming in, and that was spent last year. So let's see. I think, and a good point about the bike share. I had gotten that email from Fort Washington Forward and shared it with Councilmember Burrows, since he represents that district, and he asked that question about, how do we get more capital bike share stations and more, distributed around the county more. I think that's certainly an area where WABA and others can advocate. I will say that the 27, I believe, stations for capital bike share in the northern area, it took a long time. Like I was working on it the last time I was on the council, 9 years ago. And I'm not entirely sure why it took so long, but my understanding is that they were looking at the denser, the most dense areas of the county where they thought there would be the most, use of the capital bike share, where they actually, connect into the greater network, including those areas closest to the district. So that's my understanding, my limited understanding of that, but certainly we want to see that expanded. There are, a host of CIP, a capital improvement project projects, and that's sort of I believe it's like a 5-year CIP plan, and there's very broad areas of those. It doesn't get too granular, but so for an example, one of those is curb and road rehabilitation projects, across the county. Those are very important. But I can't tell you, which street is being, rehabbed. There are things like, New Carrollton Station, transit-oriented development, infrastructure improvements that are going to happen there in conjunction with a lot of the other development and improvements that are happening to redo the station there. That's part of that 5-year CIP plan. Pedestrian safety around, certain areas, including Racetrack Road, Stewart Lane, Metzerat Road. Marlboro Pike has 2 phases in it, and that's to enhance pedestrian safety and problems along the roadways and those intersections that make those areas more dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists. Broader areas for streetlights and traffic signals, Green Street Improvement Project, which I know, at least in my area, Campus Drive was an area identified. We're going to look at that. That had been put on hold for a while. So those are some areas that are going to be in the 5-year CIP. There's obviously the county executive has a focus on the Blue Line corridor. That is an area that I think we're going to see a lot of investment in around the infrastructure. That's also in the CIP project. And I know, the other thing that, and I know you wanted a briefing on DPWT, but also, of course, park and planning. You mentioned park and planning. That's the parks, some of the bike trails on park land are also very important to our cycling community and our bike ped community. But here's what I would say in terms of advocacy. A lot of these projects, the things that we are, and you did mention, I'm sorry, before I get to that, you did mention the bike and pedestrian network project, and I think that is a very important project. That's something that I hope WABA will stay involved in and on top of and engaged in with DPWT, because there are 15, I think, projects, 14 or 15 projects, but we need to continue that, sort of looking at the corridors. And like, I know in my district, there's Good Luck Road, which really needs to be, a safe place for cyclists and pedestrians. Cipriano Road in my district. There's a couple of other areas to make those connections, the linkages. So Good Luck Road would connect down to, basically the College Park Metro Station, where there's more infrastructure. But thinking about those areas of the county where, activists, where, people know, who cycle, know are dangerous and need to be added to this. We really need your engagement on that and to advocate for that. And just staying in touch with your council members, in the various districts, and continuing to advocate and being the squeaky wheel, so that we can't forget about, hey, we need to take care of this intersection or this roadway, and get it into the CIP and get DPWT to examine it and to do feasibility and design and engineering. These are multi-year projects. Everything takes time. So the getting things started, getting things in feasibility, now or next year, will lead to future improvements. And hopefully we'll someday in the near future, our finances will be even better. And we need to be ready for that. And also when federal grants come, things need to be shovel ready. So, it's always important to have things in the queue. Because then, if you don't have things that are ready to go, when those federal projects come, when those federal grant opportunities and earmarks and whatnot come, we won't be ready for it. So let me pause there. I know I kind of threw a lot out there, but let me pause there. Hopefully that's helpful, and happy to have more discussion.
So do we have any questions for the council member at this moment? Jeff?
Thanks, Seth and Eric. Hey, I just thematically, a suggestion that I think that we could pursue in several areas would be 4-lane to 3-lane conversions, where a 4-lane road that has maybe a sidewalk on either side and then 4 traffic lanes, and a no median, could be converted to 3 lanes with left turn pockets, perhaps protected bike lanes on the side, that sort of thing. And we have a road that Greenbelt has done that on, called Cherrywood Lane, and it's a butt ugly road, but it has definitely slowed the road down to convert it from 4 to 3. Yeah. Sheriff Road and Landover Hills might be a candidate to help people in the Landover area and near the Landover Metro and some of those apartment complexes and whatnot get down toward DC. I'm sure there's other suggestions, but just 4 to 3, DPWT, it even rhymes, that kind of what my suggestion.
Okay, I can see the signs now. No, thank you, Jeff. That's great. And thanks for your leadership on the Greenbelt East Trail as well. I think that is something that's gotten a lot of attention. It took the advocacy, your advocacy and that of others to get that. And now it does seem to be at a level where, everyone's taking it seriously and working to move it forward. I did notice, Jeff, by the way, on Cipriano, there is a slip lane that in the Greenbelt East plan, I don't see that slip lane being removed, but I brought that up. It's right at Cipriano, where Cipriano intersects with 193. And so I have brought that up as, maybe that should be looked at.
We're supposed to get
as work is being done, so.
Yeah. We're supposed to get the feasibility study by close of business today for the NASA sector. It hasn't happened yet, so maybe tomorrow. Okay. But I'll send that around as soon as I get it.
Great. And things like what you're saying, the 4 lanes to 3 lanes, I think that's really important. As we all know, a lot of these things can be done with, it's not, some of these things are not like major infrastructure changes. It's like, putting up flex posts and paint and, so some of this can be relatively low hanging fruit. So I think it's really important for the bike ped community to come together around some of these areas like that you've identified, and that we can identify more of, that can be some of that low hanging fruit to make those areas safer.
I have other questions for the council member at this moment.
Can I ask a question? Councilmember, I've sort of talked about this in the past. This is kind of more to sort of the fundamentals of the capital improvement, the CIP budget, which is that it's sort of like this really long list with all these partially funded projects, so you can't even really keep track of how much they cost and what the progress is. You have to kind of go to all the summaries to kind of find out what might be happening. But, it's mostly a list of, for the road projects, it's to make big roads bigger generally, or to make an intersection bigger. There's a lot of that. And I know that it's partially driven by the master plan for transportation. I see an APA NCA on here who might be able to address that question. But has there ever really been an attempt to sort of go back and sort of kind of fundamentally question, actually, as Jeff suggesting, like, aren't there a lot of over-designed roads that are generating really high speeds and a lot of risk, and they could be, fewer lanes? Is there any sort of
great. I mean, the great question. Great. I mean, this is exactly what we need to be having more conversation about. And today, actually, in the council TIE committee, there was some discussion about, and I forget what road it was, but it was in District 6. I think it was down near Westphalia, and I don't remember which road it was, but the fact that the road is a wider, faster road that needs some attention. And I also know that DPWT has done, and I forget where on the web, but you guys, I know this because I know you've seen these some of the improvements they've made to narrow some of the roads, and I forget what the name is of the project that they're calling.
Well, for instance,
Seth, what is it?
There was the Ager Road. There was the Ager Road complete.
No, not that one.
No, I was about to say it wasn't really.
No, not that. No, it's on the website, DPW website, where they have narrowed roads, and they have put the bulb outs, and they have created reduced it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes and whatnot. So we need to do more of that. And we had a conversation today about one of those roads in District 6. I think things are changing somewhat in DPWT in terms of that it shouldn't just be about widening and all that stuff. It should be about making the roads more slowing speeds and whatnot. But that's something we have to continue to work on, Cheryl, and we need your help on it. And I think Scott Rowe is on the as well, and I would certainly welcome any of his insights as well.
Scott Rowe is a very senior planner at Prince George's County Planning, who is working on a rewrite of the Prince George's County Transportation Master Plan. Right. Scott, if you would care to say anything about that briefly, you're welcome to, but don't feel on the spot.
No, that's okay. Councilmember Olson pretty much covered it all. There are plenty of opportunities out there throughout the county to improve bike and pedestrian connectivity through reducing lanes. And so we're looking at quite a number of those in the master plan of transportation. But, each one requires a specific analysis of what the best approach is. There's a general hesitance to make broad sweeping policy level. We're going to go from 4 to 2 on like 30 streets without at least designing that out. But I think we're on the right track with the new urban street design standards and having opportunities there to have design alternatives rather than what was previously there, which was just frankly, a 2-lane suburban road or a 4-lane suburban road. So, I think we're making some progress there.
Are there other questions or comments at this moment? If not, or after them,
And
yeah, I don't see a hand up. The person can just speak up.
Hey, this is Phil Coatman from Mount Rainier and also co-owner of Bicycle Space in DC. And having been an advocate for a while and worked with particularly Jeff for a long time, it seems like there's 3 levels here. One is kind of the local advocacy kind of thing, and the second is kind of the administrative DPWT and or DDOT. And then there is the executive, which in DC has been a huge problem, of course, in chaining, visionary progress. So how does that look at the county level in Prince George's between particularly DPWT and the executive, like also?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that we are moving in a much better direction. I think that what we saw last year with the urban street design, legislation that we all, I mean, everybody I think on this call, had a strong role in. I think that really moved the ball forward in terms of certainly with our urban streets. Now, we've got a lot of roads that are outside of what you would think of as the urban.
Yeah, there's SHA and all that.
And there's SHA, and I'm not even talking about SHA. I mean, that's a whole other. Although I have had some very good discussions with the secretary and the SHA administrator, and look, I remember 25 years ago and 20 years ago when they really were only about moving traffic through. And I think that SHA has I mean, well, not perfect, and the county's not perfect. There's been much more movement toward accommodating all users and understanding that it is about it needs to be about all users. We're not there yet. We're definitely we've got a lot of work cut out for us, but I think we're in a much more progressive place than we were even a few years ago in terms of thinking about and understanding that our roads need to be for pedestrians and cyclists just as much as about motorists. And it's going to take more advocacy. It's going to take people stepping up every time to educate elected officials about, hey, if we're doing a street, if we're doing a road, look ahead. I mean, what we have now is not appropriate. What we have now doesn't work for everybody, for all users. And that the first thought in engineers and planners' heads needs to be, how does this accommodate pedestrians and cyclists? And how do we create the most walkable community that we can? And we've got Scott Rowe on the line. He's doing a terrific job over there at Park and Planning. And I do believe that this master plan of transportation is going to be, the most progressive document on, transportation that we've had ever in the county. So, we're not there yet, but I think just, keep up the advocacy.
Where's that best focus is, obviously there's, the legislative folks like you that are on it and some that aren't. And then there's DPWT, which seems to, it's been kind of a long slog talking to them. And then how much really is the executive impacting this in the long run? How much advocacy should be focused on her level?
At all levels. I mean, yes, you should, if you engage with the county executive, at anything, I would, just like any other issue that people care about, I would put it in front of her. And in 2 years, there's going to be another countywide election, and this should be one of the big issues. When people are asking for votes and when people are, campaigning, what are you doing on transportation, on not just transportation, but on bike ped, prominence of bike ped improvements on our roadways and in our communities. That's got to be the vision of where we want to go as a county. And we've been behind for so long. I mean, we've been let's say 50 years ago, we were largely rural, starting to suburbanize county with the streetcar suburbs, and you live in Mount Rainier, I mean, up through the Baltimore Avenue Route 1 corridor, but then it became a suburban community, and we had a lot of all these metro stations that were just suburban wastelands. They were parking lots with a metro station at them, and now we are slowly redeveloping or developing those metro stations, and building out around the more urban areas. But this is actually relatively new for the county. I mean, becoming a more urban place, because even as we urbanized, we still have that suburban model. But we have the opportunity, I mean, because we didn't develop as quickly as some of our surrounding jurisdictions. I mean, you look at what Arlington, you look at, some of the other close in suburbs, they have retrofitted, like 15 years ago or whatever, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, they retrofitted all that they suburbanized first too, and now they're urban. And we are now in that place, but I think we can learn from our neighbors if we choose to, and get it right as we're developing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, in DC, the mayor's recent decision, pretty much unilaterally to kill the Connecticut Avenue bike lane. I was wondering how much impact it has on the county level to focus on the executive.
Yes, you should absolutely focus on the executive and the council members and your state delegates and your state senators, because our state roads are super dangerous in most respects, and every elected official down to your town council members, every elected official needs to be a bike ped advocate and a smart growth advocate.
I'll mention that we also, Cheryl too, at Coalition for Smarter Growth, work with WAMATA, and that's important. And there are interesting things that they're doing. For instance, dedicated bus lanes on Silver Hill Road in Suitland I believe the design is completed, and I'm not sure why they haven't been actually implemented. And then we also work through the Council of Governments and the Transportation Planning Board, which does regional planning for transportation, and also is a conduit for federal funding that is distributed through metropolitan planning offices. So there are a lot of entities out there.
And one thing I wanted to add to that is so advocating for particular projects, I think, is really important. Like, I think, yes, looking at the overall policies is also really important. And in the long run, those policies are the things that are going to make the change. But having the projects that you can point to in our communities, hey, this intersection, we need to remove the slip lane in X town, I mean, something that you can get done. We need a bike lane here. We need a trail connection in this short half-mile span to connect this neighborhood to a downtown. Like, those things, I can't stress enough how important those things are, because it changes behavior. It changes sort of psychology of where we live and how you interact with the built environment. And the more people use, good, well-planned, built infrastructure, the more people are like, well, you know what, they have this in Mount Rainier, why don't they have it in my community? If you have it in College Park, you got bike lanes, here, why don't we have it in, name your community? So I think it's really critical that we push for, everybody in this call probably uses the roads and the infrastructure that exists now. We all know places that need to be improved. So advocate for those places to be changed in the right way, and getting those things changed is gonna help us. It's like dominoes.
Yeah. Oh, we had a freeze there. Eric? I see other people moving, so it's not me.
Hopefully Eric can still hear us.
Okay, so Jeff, did you have a question for him or a general comment? Because if it's for him, we can hold off your question.
It's both, but I also noticed that I might not be first in queue if I already had a question. Of somebody else.
Gannon unfortunately seems to have dropped off.
Okay.
Well, what, you know,
here's my question, Seth. Let me just go ahead and blurt it out then.
Yeah.
Eric mentioned his support from the environmental community early on. That can be really useful. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about in the relatively well-treated northwestern part of the county is trying to create a situation where people can be car light, where instead of one car per person over 16 in the household, maybe a household only needs one car, and transit and bikes and walking can fill in. And it's not car free, but car light would be a big improvement in our area as far as reducing congestion and increasing opportunities. My second point, in addition to the environmental idea, is economic development. Some of the areas where we've actually reduced some lanes, like we've gone 4 to 2 in downtown Hyattsville on Route 1 because of the addition of parallel parking. And that area is booming. We got a lot of construction down there. And so some of the areas that have had better pedestrian and bike infrastructure are kind of driving growth now, less so the far-flung sprawl developments that the developers always want to widen roads to create access to. So anyway, economic development, and then just the equity point of car light. Cars are expensive, and if we can achieve car light in more areas of the county, we're going to help a lot of people.
Well, bike share expansion helps that, transit support and expansion helps that. So does, variety of things that we're trying to do from the environmental point of view. If we can promote e-bikes, for instance. I'm gonna return to the presentation, and there are a few slides that discuss advocacy. So that is our wrap up, and I will present them. It looks like I have 3 or 4 slides, and then we can go back to further discussion as time permits. So let me do that. We, WABA, and other organizations and individuals, of course, do advocacy at a number of points. I have displayed here on the screen a letter that we sent during the county executive's listening session for the budget. That is before the publication of the FY25 proposed budget. And I excerpted just a couple of things from there, 3 things actually. 3 main points: maintain project spending and maximize investment in sidewalks, crossing improvements, bike lanes, and so on. It is our perception that there is a backlog of projects in DPW&T for execution. So we would like to see design and engineering staff. Often that is contracted out, but then you still need people to manage those contracts who have good technical knowledge. We would love to see an e-bike purchase program. We have discussed that with Councilmember Olson, in passing with Councilmember Ivy, and there's no money for that. But so what we do instead is look for external funding sources, because it's hard to turn down funding from an outside source that's going to be doing good stuff. So in terms of our asks, I list a number of things here. sustain that strong Vision Zero focus. These are things that we talk about directly when we talk to we talk about when we talk directly to the legislators and the people in the administration. Expand the funding for planning, design, and construction of bikeways, and support the Capital Trails Network. As I mentioned just a moment ago, add design and engineering staff for projects. Councilmember Olson talked about retrofit for new design standards. That would be the urban street design standards that were recently, there's been a process to rewrite them in response to the act that the council member introduced and passed last year. We would like to see DPW&T have more resources to pursue grant funding. I've talked to the senior leadership at DPW&T, and it just seems they're not able to go after the money out there from the federal government to support projects. We would like to see bike share geographic equity. There's a network effect to bike share, just as there is to bike lanes, that you have to have a cluster of stations that people can ride from one to the other. You can't just have some isolated station in the middle of nowhere. People might, if it's at a metro station, people might use it to just do a local errand or so, but you really have to have clusters of stations around the county. And then again, e-bike support, something we're working on. There are additional opportunities. There's an annual cycle of the counties communicating their own transportation priorities to the state via a priorities letter. The assumption that I have is that the county will start working on that. This is not a council thing, although it goes before the council in the fall. The county administration should start working on that within a couple of months, I'd say. And we do want to see more applications for federal grants to cover planning, design, and construction. I should say feasibility as well. Feasibility study can often be preliminary, for instance, to discover who owns the right of way, the width of the right of way. If we're going to be building sidewalks and bike trails or side paths, those might be outside of the state right of way in the county right of way along a state road. There are particular state road projects that we're trying to encourage by communicating with the State Highway Administration now, and also with DPW&T, because cooperation is involved. One of them is WB&A, Washington, Baltimore, and Annapolis Trail Extension on Maryland 704 to the Washington, D.C. border. Another is Trolley Trail Extension along US 1 from Hyattsville to Washington, D.C. In this case, that passes through 3 municipalities, North Brentwood, and Mount Rainier. And so it's the municipalities that get involved in working with the SHA there. And then we are also supporting municipal projects. Councilmember Olson has been part of discussions in the past with New Carrollton in particular. They engaged a grant proposal writer. I know, in case anyone out there knows someone, Mayor Crosland in Hyattsville told me they're looking for a grant proposal writer. So yeah, we want to encourage municipal projects as well. I do have a slide, an image on the right there that you'll see a very low density of project proposals from 2023 in Prince George's County compared to even Anne Arundel County, just to the east, and to Baltimore City, and so on. We need more funding proposals to, as Councilmember Olson was saying, to fill that pipeline so that the funding will be in place to do projects at the various phases: feasibility, planning, design, and implementation or construction. So next steps is that we do intend to set up meetings focusing, if we can set them up, with TIE committee members, with the exception of Councilmember Olson, because you've already heard from us. Thank you. And we're going to push for federal and state grant funding proposals. You all are invited to join WABA's Action Committee for Prince George's County. It's a Google group. Send me a note if you're interested. And then we hope you all will join us for the first Prince George's County Bike Summit, which is going to be held in Suitland on Saturday afternoon, May the 14th. Again, Coalition for Smarter Growth in Prince George's, Rise Prince George's, our partners here, along with Creative Suitland, the venue that is hosting us. We're very glad that Councilmember Ivy, Jolene Ivy, who is council chair this year, will be joining us to give a keynote talk. And then we will have a number of focus sessions. One will be a panel on expanding the Prince George's County bicycling network. One of the participants will be Michael Jackson, who is bicycling lead at Prince George's Planning. My colleague Callie Crumpos, who runs the Capital Trails Network, will moderate that panel. We'll have some community members there as well. And then I'm especially looking forward to a roundtable session, a discussion on building community power and bicycling equity. That is going to feature a number of people, but one of the key points there is to talk about the experience for Black and, people of color in Prince George's County and equity questions, including the geographic equity question. I'm very pleased that Delegate Ashanti Martinez will be participating, Angelique Best, who is a WABA board member, Brittany Drakeford from the Capital Market, which does some real interesting programs out of Creative Suitland. And so this should be real good. It's a free program. We'll have food. So I hope you all will consider attending. So that's it for my prepared slides here. And I will revert us to questions and further discussion. We're just coming up on 8:30, but I don't have to get off. And so people are welcome to pose further questions, whether it's to one of Councilmember Olson or one of the other participants, that's fine, or just to the group. I will stop though by saying thank you all for attending, and we look forward to having you participate in the interactions that we have, not only with council members, but also with DPW&T. There is a new deputy director, Stacy Smalls, whom we plan to meet with. We have met in the past with the State Highway Administrator, Will Pines. We're due for another meeting, and we like having community advocates along with us. So I'll stop there and invite any other questions or discussion points. Just jump right in.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you so much for everyone who put all this together. It was very informational. Very much came in here with a learning mindset, just to listen and soak up as much knowledge as I could from you all. I appreciate the campaign for walkability and bikeability as it has been thus far. One question I had was about protected bike lanes. I've worked in the city of College Park for the last year, and a student in the University of Maryland. And so it's something that we have been starting to have conversations about, both with the city of College Park in the last month, and then actually within the university and university admin for the last year or something, or so, sorry. And going one step further than bike lanes into protected bike lanes, I was wondering if y'all had any thoughts about that.
Favor.
I'll jump in and just say, yeah, I mean, 100%. And I'll say that I met with the district engineer for State Highway Administration last week, and State Highway Administration had previously, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they basically had a policy not to do the flex posts and the vertical, what do they call it? Vertical separation.
Yeah.
And actually Jeff had pointed this out to me. We were at a forum, many of you were there, that they actually now don't prohibit that. And so I brought that up about, as you know, Gannon, Baltimore Avenue is being rebuilt by State Highway Administration. It's been 20-25 years in the making. We've been working on it for a long time. When they did the plan, they didn't allow the vertical separation. So I brought it up to them and said, hey, now you allow it. Let's look at that on US 1. They did not say that they would necessarily do that. They didn't say no. They didn't say yes. They did say that they're going to paint the bike lanes green to create more of a visual, and they thought that would be helpful, and I agree. That's a good step. I think we can have further discussion with SHA about it. I don't think it's going to be an immediate thing, but I also want to make sure that I mean, I'm not the one to just say, do it. Well, I need to talk to the 21st delegation and talk to the city of College Park. I think they'll all be supportive, but I don't want to speak for them. And, you know, we've all been, and to the university as well. So, you know, we've all been in all this together. So, you know, I think that we can advocate for that in the future, but I think that goes to your question of the separated.
Gannon, just to throw in, we had a bunch of university students who did a impromptu, I guess, kind of unofficial speed study on Greenbelt Road near NASA last week. And the average speed that we got was 43 miles an hour, which is 2 miles an hour less than the posted 45. The lowest speed we got was 27, which is very safe speed, you know, even survivable. But the highest was 68 and 70. So we have an outlier problem on some of these roads that are still kind of wide open roads. And, you know, most people kind of obeyed the speed limit and went with traffic, but we also have, I don't know if you guys have seen the video of the NASA guy that was almost run over on the shoulder in that stretch last week. It's been circulating kind of narrowly. But you know, it's just when you build a road that looks like a highway, we have to have protection features because people are going to speed. Now in College Park downtown, they've calmed traffic enough that you can kind of take the lane and survive. But in areas like north of Greenbelt Road, University Boulevard, that's still kind of like wide open, high speed. You could never survive up there without a protection feature.
And with the margins that they're putting in up there in North College Park on Route 1, you know, we see an opportunity for growth and for those protected bike lanes. It's good that their policies are changing, but I would love to be a part of advocacy efforts because we have so many students that bike along Baltimore Avenue, going from the university to other places, and they'll take a portion of Baltimore Avenue. So it's definitely something that we're big advocates for in the university.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Other questions?
I know, Gannon, we owe you a response, so we'll be in touch with you soon.
No worries. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments for the moment? All right, well, we had a lot more people sign up than actually attended, but they'll be hearing from, you will be hearing from me, possibly from Cheryl as well. And we'd be happy, as I mentioned, to have you join our advocates Google group. Send me an email message. I should have shared my address, which I'll do right now, seth.grimes@waba.org. And we're going to be reaching out to council members tomorrow, to selected council members, to ask them about meetings, just to have a similar discussion to what we're talking about right now. We need to build relationships where we don't have them and deepen them where we do. We've had very good interactions, for instance, on the TIE committee, in particular with Councilmember Fisher. I know that other council members, Councilmember Nernoga is with us. So we need to build on those relationships and deepen other relationships. And as I mentioned earlier, there are other opportunities to join WABA in interactions with state legislators and other officials. All right, with that, thank you all for joining us this evening, and thank you, Eric and Julio, for joining us as well.
Thank you, everybody, for your advocacy, and it was great to be here tonight. Thank you.